Hello, everybody. Welcome to our second edition of Weekend Waypoints, our first Saturday edition of the 2024 regular season. And who boy, did we have a Friday around SEC baseball. I have the scoreboard from yesterday pulled up already, sharing my screen just so that if you haven't, if you were out of pocket or if you were at just your team's game yesterday and didn't have a chance to look around the league, not necessarily a ton of upsets as it ended up, but we had a ton of SEC teams just having to fight off some pretty game competition. So, and we'll talk about some of these games in depth here shortly, but Vanderbilt surviving a scare against Florida Atlantic. Kentucky USC Upstate, I was at that game. I covered that game. It was maybe not as close as that score would suggest, but Upstate really gave them a fight. Arkansas was down early to James Madison. LSU was in a real fight with VMI. Mississippi State was down early to Air Force. Missouri ended up splitting a doubleheader with Cal Poly. St. John's obviously got the win over Florida. Florida got a rough start from Cade Fisher in his first start as the Friday guy, and they fought back kind of in the middle innings, but then ultimately couldn't quite come all the way back. Obviously, Texas A&M, no trouble with McNeese there. Congrats to them. Auburn, really no trouble with Eastern Kentucky, but good win for Tennessee against Texas Tech. But then late at night or early morning, really, about 4:15 Eastern time, Ole Miss got a 13-inning win over Hawaii. So just a wild day around the league. And, I honestly think this is good. This is a good reminder that no matter how talented you are, no matter what number is next to your name from the rankings standpoint, that this is baseball. You are not going to go 56-0 in the regular season. You are not going to just go run through your non-conference schedule like a warm knife through butter. Would you like to dominate some of these teams? Sure. And the next 2 days, I bet there'll be plenty of lopsided scores, right? As the depth disparities end up showing up. But like Fridays are tough against anybody. And let's not forget that, for these mid-major clubs, they're coming into these SEC venues in most of these cases, and they're up for these games, right? Now that's not an excuse. You still got to, if you're an SEC team, you still got to go win the game and be engaged and be ready to go. But that is a thing that those teams come in ready to play hard. So that was the first Friday of the season. And like I said, I think it's good that we get one of those out of the way. So, you remember what it's like. It's been almost a year. So, you need to remember what it's like we're going to have games that are close for honestly no good reason and games that make you reach for whatever your your medication of choice is to calm yourself down. So that's just going to be life in college baseball in 2024. So look, that's good perspective. We can all move on and understand that these things are just going to happen. So let's talk a little bit about some specifics from yesterday. So game of the day. That's my first topic here. And I don't have I'm here in Spartanburg, South Carolina. I'm covering the Kentucky USC Upstate series. So my whiteboard from Friday's episode did not travel. Instead, I have this piece of paper that I've written notes down, which is actually the backside of the box score from Kentucky USC Upstate. So that's what I'm working with here. Even less high tech than I was yesterday. I've downgraded from the whiteboard somehow. Vanderbilt 12, Florida Atlantic 11 is my game of the day. Shout out to Ole Miss Hawaii, but I'm going to be honest with you. My eyes were long shut. Certainly when that game ended. It wasn't long after that game started that my eyes were shut. But I woke up and watched some highlights, and a heck of a game there. So Ethan Leger with a big hit in the 13th inning to put Ole Miss ahead. Great bullpen work. Mason Nichols was awesome to bridge that gap and give Ole Miss a chance to get that win. So that is certainly would have been a contender for game of the day, but because I didn't see much of it, I don't feel like it would be intellectually honest for me to choose that game and then try to talk around it. But that was a heck of a game late in the night. But Vanderbilt and FAU was just a wild deal. It was just back and forth. It felt like haymakers being thrown. This was kind of during the Kentucky game that I was covering, so I wasn't totally locked into it, but I'd check it every so often, and it felt like the score was just ever changing, and it was kind of swinging wildly. And I think it's a little bit deceiving. So I'm going to share my screen again here and pull up the box from this game. So you could see, trigger warning for Vanderbilt fans. Like, these pitching lines are not great in a lot of cases. But I appreciate my friend Ari at the Tennessean. She helped me out and gave me a little bit of context for what happened in this game. And so if you're inclined to be worried about some element of this, here, I don't know if you can see this number, but the 7 walks from Grayson Carter in 3 innings, like, that's not great, because that just kind of exacerbates or is an example of an issue that he had before that they were hoping would be remedied this season. And maybe it still will be, right? That's another thing that's important to mention is, look, this is one game. There's 55 more of these. Like, history is littered with examples of bad performances on day one that end up turning into great seasons, right? So what I would be less worried about is this line right here for Carter Holton. First, you look at the peripherals, right? 1 walk, 5 strikeouts in 3 innings. He was missing bats. He wasn't walking guys. The next thing you look at is that he gave up 4 hits and plus the 1 walk. That's, 5 runners that way, 5 runs, which tells you on its face that he had some sequencing bad luck. Like every runner who reached base against him scored, perhaps literally. And so that was what, Arya was sharing with me, was that, there really wasn't a lot hard hit against him. It's just some balls that found some space and they happened to cluster the hits together. And so it ended up looking pretty ugly, but it wasn't as ugly as the stat line would lead you to believe. Sawyer Hawks gave up a massive home run. That happens. Like, I'm not too worried about that, obviously, on game 1, but something to monitor. How well is he able to be a lockdown guy at the back of the bullpen? Offensively, though, there was a lot of positive here. Certainly, this guy right here, R.J. Austin, he's going to be such an important part of what Vanderbilt does this season, especially on offense. So to see him go, I have it written, 4 for 5 with a double, a home run, and 4 RBIs. That's big time. They're going to need that kind of stuff from him. Good game from Jonathan Vastine, 3 for 4, 3 RBIs, and he had the game-winning, the walk-off hit, like a little bloop dumped into left field. Just found some grass and scored a couple of runs there. So, not the prettiest win, not the prettiest way to win, frankly, but again, a win is a win, and that's kind of my big picture takeaway from yesterday, man, is if your team won, just take it and move on. Like, I think we all learned collectively yesterday that a win is largely a win. Like, let's not nitpick just yet. We can nitpick plenty a few weeks from now, but like for day 1, like a win is just kind of a win, I think. So Vanderbilt got it. A lot of positive on offense. We'll wait to see on the pitching. They have a couple more days, obviously, with FAU. FAU always hits. Their team is always a good offensive club, so it's a good test for that pitching staff. I'll be interested in watching the next couple of days to see how they progress. Player of the day. Couple candidates here. R.J. Austin is certainly one of them, but since we kind of already talked about him, I'm actually going to go with Ike Irish. A game that didn't get a lot of run yesterday from a national perspective because they blew out Eastern Kentucky and only played 7 innings. But 4 for 5, 4 RBIs in 7 innings. So he got it done quick. So he could have easily, if he gets another at bat or 2 in a 9-inning game, could have easily had 5 or 6 hits maybe. So big game for Ike Irish. No shock there. Like, he was just so steady for them last year, and is off to obviously a good start already this season. Also, Jace Laviolette, meant to mention him, 2 home runs for Texas A&M in that 15-0 win over McNeese State. Again, that's just kind of what he does. Braden Montgomery also homered. That's good news there. Ali Camarillo homered, and there might have been one more, but I don't have the box here in front of me. But so obviously big day offensively for A&M. He scored 15 runs. Seeing Laviolette connect for 2 home runs in that one. Braden Montgomery coming through, that's obviously big time for A&M. When you see your big ticket portal guy come through early in the season, it kind of gives you some reassurance that, okay, this is the guy we thought we got, right? So at least for game 1. Pitcher of the day, and this one's kind of fascinating. All due respect to Will McIntyre, who kind of saved Arkansas's bacon. Tough start for Hagen Smith. We have to bring that up. I mean, through 1 inning, through a bunch of pitches. I saw a quote from Dave Van Horn after the game when asked, why did Hagen Smith struggle? And he was just like, I don't know. we'll see. Certainly, the chilly conditions, like I get it, February. So again, we're going to reserve some judgment here, but certainly that's not what you wanted from Hagen Smith, a guy who you were, hoping would be among the best pitchers, not only in the SEC, but in the country. So, but Will McIntyre really came in and steadied that game. And that's no surprise. It's kind of what he does on that pitching staff, veteran guy who kind of is a shapeshifter in terms of he can do just about anything for them. Maybe there was some thought that maybe he would be a weekend rotation guy for them from the jump this year, but the pitching talent is so good that they didn't necessarily need him in that role. But he really came in and helped bridge that gap, give the offense time to come back and get that 6-4 win. Also, all due respect to Ben Hess, who was part of a 4-0 shutout of Manhattan. Great stuff from the Alabama pitching staff. Obviously, against Manhattan, it's hard to know exactly how much that means or doesn't. I don't know how good Manhattan is or isn't. Unless you are a Manhattan fan or a love watching this, you probably don't either. So we'll see what that is. But I say that to say that Ben Hess is maybe the most important player on Alabama's team in terms of if that rotation is going to live up to its potential and the talent that we know it has. Like, Ben Hess has got to be a dude. So he's 1 for 1 on being a dude. So that was huge for Alabama in that win over Manhattan. Also, all due respect to Ryan Prager, in that blowout win for A&M against McNeese State, he threw, I think it was 5 shutout, 9 strikeouts. So really good work from him. So shout out to him as well. But I'm going with co-pitchers of the day, and that's the AJs at Tennessee. AJ Russell, Ozzie, in a 6-2 win for Tennessee over Texas Tech. I will, if you'll bear with me, I'm going to go in my other screen here and pull up the box score here for Tennessee. I will vamp in the meantime. But just for minute 1 yesterday, AJ Russell looked like the guy that you figure Tennessee hoped they were getting whenever they said they were going to throw him on Fridays. Here, I got the box pulled up, so let's move over to that screen. There we go. So AJ Russell there, 4 1/3 innings pitched, 3 hits, 2 runs, 1 walk, 10 strikeouts. So 10 of his 13 outs came via the strikeout. At one point early in that game, he was on a streak of consecutive strikeouts. I mean, it's a fastball, at least early in that start, 95 to 97 with just a ton of life on it. It's moving. In the 5th inning, it looked like he started to fatigue a little bit. He was, 73 pitches is not nothing, especially for opening weekend. And we got to remember that this is a first-time weekend starter. This was not his role last year. So, I suspect as time goes on, they continue to stretch him out. He continues to get into that type of starting pitcher form. I think we're going to see him be a guy who can get Tennessee into the 6th or 7th inning. But it was electric for when he was in there, and 2 runs, and that made the game 3-2 at the time. And then Tennessee obviously added a little bit on late, some insurance to make it look like this was a closer game than that score looked at 6-2. I feel like so. Heck of a performance from AJ Russell, and then AJ Causey comes in, Jacksonville State transfer. Really funky guy. Like, it's a weird slot. Everything he throws moves. He's got a breaking ball that spins at 3,000 RPM. He's got that because of his slot. He's got that natural kind of run on his fastball. It's just not a comfortable at bat. And you see there 4 2/3, 2 hits, no runs, no walks, 7 strikeouts. So Tennessee strikes out 17 guys in 9 innings. So 17 of the 27 outs recorded via strikeout for Tennessee. That's what you're looking for. And they haven't thrown Drew Beam yet, right? So he's going to start today against Oklahoma. And that kind of takes me to my final segment for today, which is the game to look forward to here on Saturday. And full disclosure, I actually originally had down Florida in St. John's, given that St. John's won yesterday and Liam Peterson was set to start today. But that game has been canceled. Weather not great in that area. I kind of knew that was the case, not just there. I was also listening on my drive to Spartanburg yesterday. Louisville played early, so I listened to the Louisville game, and they were talking about how they were playing double headers in Tampa yesterday because they were, not sure that Saturday was going to allow them to play. So here we are. So canceled Florida and St. John's. So instead, Tennessee and Oklahoma, 8 p.m. Eastern, feels like a good one. It's, Drew Beam on the mound. You get to see the guy they call QB1, be on the mound for Tennessee. We know what to expect there. He's going to have a steady heartbeat. He's going to give them, maybe he doesn't shut down Oklahoma's offense because Oklahoma's talented, but he's going to give them depth. He's going to know what he's doing out there. He's not going to get sped up in that moment. But it's also an interesting matchup from the standpoint of Oklahoma likes to push the issue offensively. Now, in yesterday's game, they didn't get much of a chance to do that in their loss to Oregon. But when they have runners on, they want to move runners. They want to run. They want to take extra bases. Can Tennessee's pitchers and catchers slow down the running game? Tennessee has pitchers that are slow to the plate. And then, historically, Tennessee catchers have not necessarily been very good at throwing out runners. Now, Cannon Peebles there, is it different with him, behind the plate? We'll see. So I think that makes for an interesting stylistic matchup. I'm also interested in Air Force and Mississippi State. Look, Air Force got to Mississippi State early. Now, kudos to the bullpen for Mississippi State for settling that game down. The offense kind of took over there. But now that Mississippi State is going to delve a little bit deeper into the bullpen and get deeper into that pitching staff, is Air Force able to start to put more runs on the board? Remember, it was the last year on opening weekend, it was the Saturday game against VMI, not the Friday game, that got away from Mississippi State. So what will we see today between Air Force and Mississippi State? I'm fascinated to see that. It's 5 p.m. Eastern time, first pitch for that one. To wrap up real quick, just some plugs. First of all, thank you for joining me on this first Saturday edition of Weekend Waypoints. We're 2 episodes in. I'm already having a lot of fun doing this, so I appreciate you being a part of it. Also, some stuff on the website. At SEC Extra, I have a story on yesterday's Kentucky win over USC Upstate. I wrote about the defense. Continues to be a cheat code for Kentucky. I think people look at Kentucky and their word association is small ball, and that's fair. But the secret sauce for that team last year was defense. And again, they showed it on Friday against USC Upstate. So check that out if you're interested. Mark has a story on Bama's 4-0 shutout win over Manhattan, talks about Ben Hess, talks about the offensive performance of the transfer outfielders who kind of led the way offensively yesterday for the Crimson Tide. I also put up a story yesterday, kind of fascinating. We had 3 freshman shortstops in the starting lineup yesterday on opening day in the SEC. We had Justin LeBron for Alabama. We had Dylan Cupp for Mississippi State, Drew Culbertson for Missouri. I don't know how that compares historically. I have to imagine 3 is a record, but they've been playing SEC baseball a long time, so who knows. But so the story is, and a hat tip to Pat James, who helps us out here at D1 Baseball with some research stuff. He went back and found before this season, the last time each SEC team started a freshman at shortstop. So I wrote a story on that and just kind of ran down the last time each team had that freshman shortstop starting before yesterday, and just talked about those individual players' careers as a little bit of a roundup there. So check that out. I thought that was a lot of fun to write. On the main site, Kendall was in Arlington yesterday. He's got a story on Tennessee. So if you're interested in more about the AJs and what they did last night against Texas Tech, Kendall has a story about that on the site. And then, of course, if you're a longtime D1 baseball reader, you will know about the D1 Digest, which is a wrap up of everything that happened in the sport throughout Friday. So more than obviously just the SEC, that's going to be nationally, but there's no better way to get caught up on what all is happening in the country or what happened in the country the previous day, like that D1 Digest. So grab yourself a cup of coffee, a plate of eggs, whatever it is you use in the morning to kind of get your body going a little bit. Glass of water. I'm a morning glass of water guy here. So grab whatever it is that you use to get you going, and sit down with D1 Digest and get caught up on everything that happened around the country on Friday. That is it for this episode of Weekend Waypoints. One other plug: use the code season24 season to get 24% off on an annual subscription at d1baseball.com. That code is good through the rest of this weekend. So if you're watching this on our social channels or YouTube and you're not a subscriber, we'd be humbled if you give us a chance, whether on the main site or over at SEC Extra. Either one. Mark and I certainly on the SEC Extra side are working hard with some new ideas, some different things, including this show, to try to bring some fun, interesting, different content to you guys every day of the season. Enjoy the Saturday of baseball, folks. I'll talk to you again tomorrow morning around the same time with our Sunday Weekend Waypoints. But until then, I'll see you.